everybody, it's Pac-Man from Drunk Monkey Garage. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. Today we're going to be working on the rear fender for the 2010 Fatbob paint job. That's turning out to be a really cool project. We've got the front fender done and the tank done. The rear fender was a little more work. The factory paint was starting to flake off, and there was a little bit of surface rust on the metal underneath. So what I did was I took that down to bare metal. The pitting on the rust wasn't significant, so that came right out. We got all the surface rust off of it. We used a quality 2K epoxy primer, some stuff I got from Limeline. You mix it 1-to-1 with the activator, and it gives you a really solid base to work with. After that, we put a 2K high build primer on it and sanded everything flat, made sure there were no flaws in it. Then we laid a base coat down of vivid black, which is what the original color of the bike was. And after that, I put a 2K clear coat over it to protect the base coat. So at this point, what we're going to do is sand down the clear coat. We're going to tape off the flames to kind of match the rest of the paint scheme for the front fender and tank. What we're going to do today is we're going to scuff down that clear coat and start laying out our graphics. So this first step, I'm going to be using a DA with a 600 grit sanding pad and a Limeline sanding sponge to get into all the little crevices that the DA can't get into. So let me get a dust mask on and we'll get started with that. So we've got it all scuffed down now with the sandpaper. That was a 600 grit. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean this off really good with a glass cleaner, and then touch up any of these areas that are still shiny with a gray Scotch-Brite pad. Going to hit it first with a little bit of just degreaser, wax and grease remover. That's the first step. You want to try to get all of the sanding dust off of this after each step of sanding and scuffing. So if you don't, when you lay your tape down, you'll lock it into the layer below and leave little marks. Also, with every step of cleaning, I usually try to use a new microfiber cloth. It's just a spray weight glass cleaner. You can pick it up at Walmart, anywhere that sells cleaning supplies. It's pretty cheap. It's very effective. It's ammonia free, so it won't interact with any of your paint. Now we're going to let that moisture evaporate, and then we'll get to scuffing all these little spots with gray Scotch-Brite pad. Now, you may notice I burned through the color right here and went to the primer. That's okay. I'd rather burn through that a little bit and touch it up with the airbrush than to not have that scuffed and have the clear coat start peeling at this edge. So after we tape off the graphics and stuff, before we tape all the black off, I'll touch this up with the airbrush. The other thing you might notice is I'm taking these bolts out that hold it to the stand. And the reason I'm doing that, even though this is going to be covered with a chrome trim piece, the fender strut, I want to get all this area in here scuffed up, so when I hang it up to clear coat the whole thing after it's done, the clear won't start peeling around this bolt. So got to make sure that's scuffed up as well. And then when we go to do our overall clear, we'll hang it up instead of having it on the stand, and the clear will stick to that. So we just want to make sure it's scuffed up good enough so that there's no shiny parts left. If you have orange peel, that's okay at this point. The Scotch-Brites are not going to get the orange peel out, but it will get down in those little craters and scuff all of it up, so everything will stick from this point on. Little damp rag to get the dust off. Make sure we don't have any shiny parts left. Once that evaporates, it'll show you any shiny parts. What you want is this kind of matte finish over the whole thing. And it looks like we're pretty good. So all my edges are good. Like I said, I'm going to have to touch up with a little bit of color on some of these edges. Because when you're spraying the clear coat and the paint and everything, the edges are very thin. So it's easy to burn through those, especially with a 600 grit sandpaper. That's why I went through the Scotch-Brite around these delicate areas, so I didn't burn through more of that. So I think we're looking pretty good. I'm going to give it another cleaning, a real good clean, and then we'll start taping off the graphics. So I've got my front fender over here in the corner as a reference. I'm going to try to set the camera up to give you the guys the best angle while I'm taping off this rear fender. The rear fender is going to be kind of minimalistic compared to the tank and the front fender. What we're going for is kind of like the flames are fading out. So there won't be as many flame graphics on this as there are on the other pieces, which should make it a little easier, hopefully. And I'll put you guys on time lapse while I'm going through that process, because sometimes it takes a few hours. But once I get to a certain good stopping point, I'll stop it and we'll discuss what I've done. All right, got my part, got my coffee, got my tape. First thing we're going to do is lay down a center line like we did with all the rest of the parts. Doing this with a different color tape so I can just get rid of it after I start laying the graphics out. So we'll try to go right down the center of this center line here, center holes. that's why I'm drinking coffee instead of beer at this point. So we got to get this completely centered. Make it look right. I'll just kind of lay it on there till I make sure that we are in the center of these holes. Then lightly press down to the edge. Gonna put a fresh blade in here so that the tape will cut easily and not go through into the paint. And I've got a fresh straight edge blade. So there's our center line. Looks like maybe up here it's a little crooked. So we'll just pull that up. That looks good. It's nice when you have a part that has holes down the center. Makes it a little easier. All right, so we've got our center line. Got my front fender over here for reference. I'm going to get to taping. Like I said, I'm going to put you guys on hyperlapse. That way you don't have to suffer through me struggling to tape off these flames. So let's get to it. So we've got the first set of flames laid out. This set of flames and the whole front end of this is going to be the copper. Now I'm going to interweave some the variegated copper leaf flames into this. On the rear fender, I'm not going to do a whole lot of the variegated copper leaf because it does tend to be a little fragile, and I don't want to chance it peeling off or anything, so I may just do a couple of licks in here. The seat's going to be right here. You are going to see this bottom portion through the frame, so I want to paint that copper and have the flames go into here. And like I said, we may do some variegated leaf up in here, but this will mostly be covered with the seat. So we'll start it here and just have a few licks coming out here, maybe crossing over, and that'll be it. Then we can start masking everything up, touch up these edges with the black with the airbrush, and then we'll be ready to start painting flames. So we're going to finish taping off those flames, and we'll get the light green color down for the pinstripe around all the flames. So let me show you where we're at so far with the front fender and the tank. So here's the fender. We've got all the graphics laid out. We've got the 3 coats of final clear on it. There are a few little dust nibs in it that we're going to have to wet sand out, and then it'll be ready for polish and buffing. The tank is also in a final clear, and just like the front fender, there's a few little dust nibs in it, nothing major. They're actually in a spot right here where the console is going to go, so you probably wouldn't see those. I could probably get away with not wet sanding those out, but I'm going to anyway. That's just my OCD kicking in. But other than that, that'll be ready for buffing also. So I'm going to let these parts sit while I finish up the rear fender, and then at that point I'll end up wet sanding and buffing everything all at once. So let's take you into the booth and show you where we're at with the rear fender. Got the flames all laid out. All we got to do now is finish masking off all the spots that are going to stay black, and then we'll be ready to put the light green down for the pinstripe color. And after we get the green laid down, we'll put a protective coat of clear on that so it doesn't come up when we tape off for the colors and the variegated copper leaf. This can be one of the more tedious parts of the process because you're trying to follow the lines, the 1/8 inch line that you've already laid out, and you don't want to cut into what the colors are going to be, because then it'll look funny when you get done. And you don't want to leave any gaps, because then you'll get color where you don't want it. So like I said, this is kind of a tedious process, but it's important to do it right in order to get a good clean paint job out of it. You got to make sure all your tape isn't lifting up or pulling up around the corners and distorting that radius. So basically what I've done here is I taped off my initial pattern with a 16th inch fine line tape, and then I went back over the outer edges of all the graphics with an 1/8 inch tape. And what I'm going to do now is go over that 1/8 inch tape with a 1/4 inch paper tape. So that'll give me a good place to tape off everything else and not cut into the pattern. This is the point where I usually put some music on and just relax and go with the flow. Alright, we've got the green mixed up. I've got it in my spray gun. Got the part in the booth. We've got it cleaned off and taped. So let's get to spraying some paint. Okay, so we've got the green for the pinstripe put down. Now I'm going to unmask everything and then throw a protective clear coat on it, and then we'll be ready to tape off for the copper color. So what you saw me doing after I unmasked everything was I took a little bit of reducer on a rag and I just cleaned up around these edges where the tape kind of let some stuff bleed through. It was just a dust, but after you clear coat it, it would look like a dirty spot on the paint, but it would be under the clear. So I cleaned all that off. I'm going to wipe it down with some glass cleaner, get some clear mixed up so we can put a protective coat of clear on here, and that way it'll preserve everything I've got so far. Then I can tape off and fix any little spots that I need to fix with the airbrush. So I'm going to get to it. So I've got some clear mixed up. I don't use my top shelf finish clear for the intermediate coats. I do use a name brand quality overall clear. That way it doesn't yellow in between the layers. But I saved my top shelf clear for the finish clear. So got the clear mixed up. I'm going to get my mask on and we're going to get to spraying. So as you can see, this is a pretty in-depth project, but in the end, it's going to be worth it. I think it's going to be a great paint job. So stick with us. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that bell notification for the wrap up of this project. And I'd like to give a big shout out to all our subscribers. We broke 100, which doesn't seem like much, but it means a ton to us. So make sure you guys leave us a comment. Tell us how we're doing. If you'd like to see future projects, let us know. We'll see what we can do about filming those. In our next video, we're going to scuff down this protective clear and we're going to tape off for the copper color, which will be the initial flames. And then we'll probably lay down another protective coat of clear on that. Till next time, cheers.